There is a moment when experience stops feeling tolerable, not unbearable, not extreme, just too close. A sensation appears, a pressure, a heaviness, a contraction. At first, it is only there, simple, direct, unresolved. But then, something shifts. The system begins to move away. Not outwardly at first. Internally, attention starts searching. The body tightens differently. The mind begins to prepare an exit. This is the beginning of escape. Most people do not notice this moment. They notice distraction. They notice thought. They notice that suddenly, they are somewhere else. But before distraction, before the thought, before the movement away, there is a smaller event, a refusal, not a verbal refusal, not a conscious decision, a subtle inner movement that says, not this, not now, not fully. This is where escape begins, not when you leave the feeling, when you first stop allowing it. That shift is fast. So fast that it often feels as if the feeling itself caused the escape. But that is not quite true. The feeling appears first. Then comes the moment when the system decides it no longer wants contact. That decision may not feel like a decision. It feels like necessity, as if moving away were the only possible response. But what feels necessary is often only rehearsed, a familiar movement, a learned reflex, a practiced exit. This is why escape can happen in so many forms. You think, you explain, you check something, you move attention elsewhere. You speed up internally. You start narrating. You go numb. You become productive. You become analytical. The form changes. The function does not. Distance. Something in you is no longer staying with what is here. And because many forms of escape look intelligent, reasonable, or even responsible, they are rarely seen clearly. The mind says, I'm processing, I'm reflecting, I'm figuring it out. But often, it is only leaving the rawness of sensation, leaving the immediacy of contact, leaving the unfinished intensity of direct experience. This is why escape is harder to notice than reaction. Reaction is visible. Escape is quiet. It happens through redirection. Not necessarily away from experience, but away from directness. The feeling is no longer being felt as itself. It is being converted into thinking, into planning, into interpretation, into action. And once conversion begins, the original experience is already being left behind. This is the important moment. Not the distraction itself, not the story that follows, the first inward turn away, the first sign that attention no longer wants to remain where the body is. At first, this can be difficult to detect, because escape often feels relieving. The system moves away, and pressure decreases. A little more distance, a little less intensity, a little more control. And that relief makes the movement feel correct, necessary, protective, wise. But relief is not resolution. The reduction in pressure does not mean the experience completed. It only means contact was interrupted. This is why the same feelings keep returning, not because they are stronger than you thought, but because they were never fully met. Escape interrupts process. It does not end it. And once this becomes visible, something very precise can be observed. Not just that you escape, but the exact moment you begin to. That moment is subtle, a leaning away, a tightening around sensation, a quick shift toward thought, a refusal to stay simple. And that subtle movement is where everything changes. Because if it can be noticed there, then the whole structure of escape is no longer invisible. It can be felt while it is still forming, before it becomes habit, before it becomes distance, before it becomes a full departure from experience. That is where this begins. What changes is not the feeling first. It is the movement around it. Once the beginning of escape is noticed, the experience is no longer completely hidden inside the reflex to leave. There is still pressure, still discomfort, still the impulse to move away. But now, that impulse is visible, and visibility changes its force. Not because the impulse disappears, but because it is no longer the whole experience. Before this, escape felt seamless. Feeling became thought. Thought became distance. Distance became relief. And the process seemed natural. Now the sequence can be felt. First, the sensation. Then the refusal. Then the turn away. That order matters. Because when the order is seen, escape loses some of its innocence. It is no longer confused with wisdom or necessity or self-protection. It is seen for what it is, a movement away from contact. This does not make escape wrong. It makes it clear. And clarity changes the relationship. You no longer need to fight the impulse. You do not need to prove that you can stay forever. You only need to notice the exact instant the system begins to leave. That noticing is enough to create a different kind of space. Not the space after thought. Not the space before reaction. The space before departure. A very small interval where the body is still here, the feeling is still here, and attention has not fully gone. That interval is fragile, but it is real. And when it is recognized, something softens. The system learns that contact can continue for one moment longer than it expected. Not comfortably, not perfectly, but directly. That directness matters more than endurance. Because the point is not to become heroic with discomfort. The point is to stop disappearing the moment discomfort begins. This is where experience starts to complete itself, not through force, not through analysis, but through non-departure. The feeling rises, it stays, it changes, and because it is no longer immediately converted into escape, it no longer has to return in the same unfinished way. This is how the cycle weakens, not all at once, but each time the leaving is noticed before it becomes full distance. Each time, attention remains with the body for 1 second more. Each time, the feeling is allowed to exist without being abandoned. That is enough to change the structure, because what was automatic is no longer invisible. And what is no longer invisible cannot keep operating with the same authority. The feeling may still come, the urge to leave may still come, but now both are seen. And in that seeing, something important returns. Not control, contact. This is inner cognition.